Oh, I am live.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. You have a line. You have a line that I have to give you.
What?
When you answer the phone, maybe tomorrow, say, hello and welcome to Miracle Mom and Michael. Just answer the phone that way.
Okay, yes. Quickly, I forget.
No, it's all right. I didn't tell you ahead of time, so.
Okay.
For your information, we are apparently live streaming right now.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
I got it up and running.
Okay.
Your picture with your brother, Uncle John, is right here in the frame. I think I found the stage or the setting, the staging that I want. I'm in the best Wi-Fi zone in our place, and I think I have the setup. I think I got it figured out.
So when we hang up, I can go to YouTube and view it.
Yeah. You could actually go to YouTube and view it right now.
Oh.
But you don't have to. I mean, if you want to.
Okay. I'm writing something right now.
Sure. Go look at it later.
My LibreOffice writer, and I don't want to go out of it. So.
Okay. I didn't do my hair, so this isn't going to be like this. This week is the test run. Next week we'll go live. Or I mean, we're going live now. We're testing it, but next week we'll, like, if you want to send it to your email the link to anybody.
Okay.
So one of the things I want to do up front, we're already like 2 minutes in. This thing was rolling before I realized it, so I called you, and at about at the minute mark. One of the things I want to do is have like an intro, not just hi and welcome to Miracle Mom and Michael, but a line about, and I was just thinking about it, that in a time when the world seems to something like when the world seems to be falling apart, here's a message of hope or something like that. This is, that's, like literally, because your story ties into just the fact that this happened around the same time the virus was first diagnosed. So it's, it's a parallel story. You and I are talking about what's going on in the world, plus what's been going on in our lives, et cetera. And it should be a story of hope, because the things we've been going through are hard to explain in a good way, right? There's bad stuff happening all over the world right now, and this is some good stuff that's been happening simultaneous to it. So I'll come up with some kind of, I'll probably test out some different lines, and maybe when we have a few people listening, they can chime in and say, I like that, or I don't like that. Have it a viewer participation, experience.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So, how have you been since we last spoke?
I've been well. Just tracking the information that keeps coming out. There was something, though, that did perk my interest. It was yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Yeah. At one of Trump's briefings. Well, the briefing.
The daily
briefing. Did you see it?
I usually catch parts of it. I usually catch the beginning, and then sometimes I'll just, like, for example, last night I listened to a lot of it as I was going to bed, and so like I fell asleep with the earbud in my ear, so I didn't catch it all.
Well, here's what. See, I have maintained all along from the very beginning of this whole thing that this is not about a virus, and that a lot is going on behind the scenes. We've talked about this before. This is a smokescreen. Yesterday at his briefing, he dropped not just a nugget, but a Moab, mother of all bombs, piece of information. And he announced at the very beginning of that briefing, he announced to the nation and the world that as of April 1st, the narco-terrorist dictator Maduro and his drug regime is being brought down. He was indicted a week ago. Remember that?
Right.
He indicted Marco in 16 of Marco's drug trafficking
Empire.
Right. Okay. He announced it and he left it at that. That's all he said. Everybody went, what the heck was that? Where did that, what's that got to do with the coronavirus? Okay. So at the briefing yesterday, he announced our military, our Navy, our Marines, the Coast Guard, and all support services are required, are now in place at the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, all of those areas where this drug trafficking operation operates.
Mm-hmm.
They are now going to destroy every supply chain that these people have set up. And it has begun. He didn't go into how long it'll take. He merely announced it's a war against this whole drug crime syndicate.
Yeah, and I did hear that, and that was because I haven't watched all of the daily briefings. That one, yesterday's, seemed to be a departure, at least at the beginning, because he did bring in Dr. Fauci and the other medical experts later. But the first group he brought in was the military,
right.
and the Attorney General, William Barr. And so he mentioned that this is a war that's been going on for a long time. The war on drugs that a lot of people say is an unwinnable war. And he said he's going to finish that war. He's said as much yesterday, that pretty much contradicting that idea, the unwinnable war, that there hasn't been the willpower or the willpower when you're in a bloated bureaucracy and you have, I would say probably, and this always sounds conspiratorial when I say stuff like this, but clearly there are government officials in the pocket of the drug cartel, right? It's like you've got money flowing back and forth everywhere. And so when you have an administration like this that is, kind of shatter, it's basically, when he was elected, I had one thought: it's no longer business as usual. Like him or hate him, that was what was voted into office. No longer business as usual, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Both sides of the aisle are complicit in a lot of corruption. And this guy is an outsider, but he's surrounding himself with experts, and people will argue about which experts are the right ones. But as far as the drug war, he's putting his foot down, it seems like. Now, are you saying that this was part of the plan all along?
Yes, pre-planned.
Before
he took office.
Oh, before he took office. Okay, well, I agree with that. I think he's, a lot of the things he's been wanting to do have been, he's been under investigation for years in office, and that will certainly slow you down in some of his ambitions or plans, but it didn't slow much. Like, he was busy behind the scenes doing a lot of stuff while the headlines were saying other things.
Right, of course.
And I think as we've mentioned in the earlier episodes from this week, there are a lot of good things coming out of this global catastrophe. I think this makes the drug war easier because they're not able to manufacture. I don't know if I mentioned it in the podcast that that the drug cartels are not able to get a lot of the chemicals they need to make heroin, fentanyl,
Meth.
meth and crystal meth. So the production has dropped, like illicit drug production has dropped precipitously. So there's less. Yesterday they were talking about they didn't have the resources to stop. They were stopping only a fraction of the drugs that were coming in, but now we're going to double our efforts, and we'll be able to, now with the production of the illegal drugs lowering and our efforts to stop them doubling, it's essentially a death knell to the big cartels.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but at this point, you have to stop and remember. Think about this virus, quote unquote, in China. Where do these drug cartels get the chemical ingredients necessary to make those drugs?
Yeah.
Where?
Well,
where?
The
China.
The chemical plants in China, and so they can't manufacture them. The drug cartels can't manufacture them, but it's been known for quite some time that fentanyl, that's like the newest, deadliest drug out there, has been killing Americans for several years now. And it's been known that has been coming, most of it has been coming directly from China itself. So shutting off the borders, reducing the capacity of drug manufacturers the illegal drug manufacturers to produce. So the quantities are going down and the enforcement is going up. So that's all good news.
Well, my focus on all of that, suddenly it was like I had this image came to me of what he just did in going to war. You got a country like communist China, evil, evil, evil. You've got these drug cartels, evil, 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 right?
Yeah.
And you pull off a war like this against two of the most evil entities on the planet. Let me finish. Are you going to piss them off? Excuse my language, but that's the truth. Do you think you're going to make some evil people angry and want to come after you? And now ask yourself, why is our nation in just about 100% lockdown? Connect the dots.
Well, there are causes and effects. And
exactly. That's my whole point. He knew. Trump knows. He knows the potential that kind of evil could bring down on this nation.
Well, and it has been bringing down on this nation. I mean, that's been ignored. That's the fentanyl death rate in our country has been skyrocketing, and it's been being ignored by a lot of politicians. Some politicians, it's like their number one issue, but that should be the headline. Like, there should be headlines.
Exactly.
The headlines that we keep hearing are just like, what are they talking about? Why aren't they focusing on the real issues in America, like the things that are killing and destroying families, killing people, killing young people? And if you have a son or daughter overdose on fentanyl, your life has changed forever. Like, your life has changed forever. And that's just, every death is multiplied by, there are multiple grieving family members and friends of these people that die. And nobody thinks that that's a problem. They just,
80,000 people a year die from this illegal drug overdose.
Well, drug overdoses are, once the supply is reduced, those will go down. it may go up. Like drug overdoses may go up in the short run because of the tanking economy and the supply of drugs that are still here. So there's a supply of drugs that are in the United States that I'm sure the Department of Justice is tracking those down. So some of the suicides or the overdoses may go up because of the tanking economy, but in the long run, so when the supply chain is completely cut off or as much as possible cut off, and the supply goes down, then we will see a precipitous drop in the overdose rate and the suicide rate. And then our economy should come roaring back once manufacturing ramps back up in the United States for all the products that we've offloaded to other countries. All the good things. We're entering the most painful period in our country's history, but we'll come out.
That's what Trump just said. The next 2 weeks are going to be very painful.
Right. Painful in the number as the death toll skyrockets, because a lot of people don't understand what exponential growth means. So exponential growth, I know you understand it, but people think, oh, the numbers are just ticking up. The numbers are going to be doubling, and doubling is exponential growth. So I've had the kids tracking the infection rate and the death rate, and it's been going up. And just yesterday, one of them said, "Oh my gosh, we're almost at 1 million cases in the world." I'm like, "Yep," and it's going to get higher than that. And every now and then there's this milestone that they go, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh," and for a teenage kid to go, "Oh my gosh," about something like that. The oh my goshes are going to keep coming because doubling means those numbers just get very big. Right now we're at 200 something thousand cases in the United States. Well, the cases are going to go up into the millions. Like we're at 200,000. That's the beginning. The cases are going to go into the millions. The deaths are going to go into the hundreds of thousands. And that's where everybody that said, oh, it's just like the flu. No, this is multiple times worse than the flu, especially because there's no vaccine. And so I did exponential growth, not to fearmonger, but what they were showing yesterday or the day before yesterday when they were showing the charts is the best case scenario is only 100,000 deaths, right? Best case scenario with our most stringent efforts to mitigate, the best case scenario is 100,000 deaths. There was one study that said like 80,000, and that's worse than the flu. But when do we ever have best case scenario? Sometimes, when miracles happen. So it'll be a miracle if we only have 100,000 deaths. It'll be more like 200, 300, maybe 400 or 500,000. So those are, it could have been millions if we didn't do anything of deaths.
Right.
And that's the number we're wanting to keep as small as possible.
Right. There was one, I don't mean to change the subject.
No, it's all right.
There was one, at least it hit me this way. It was a pleasant thought. And when Trump announced this war against drugs, I said to myself, that's wonderful, because now we have a lot of drug dealers roaming the streets of America who are unemployed.
Right. Well, one of the things that struck me early was not just the dramatic, initially at least, the dramatic drop in crime, right? You can't be out and about. And if you're out and about, the likelihood that you're going to be followed or looked into is higher. So crime rate will drop if the American culture tends to be charitable and generous overall. So when hospitality services ramp up, I mean, they are ramping up, but I think those will also grow exponentially as people in need, people that run out of food, that are already running out of food because they're out of a job and don't have money, even though the grocery stores are open. So that's going to increase over the next few months. And hospitality services, giving out meals and providing for people. Though when those things ramp up, it will mitigate or reduce the number of people going out and looting or robbing, because crime rates could go up in that regard. So in America, we do a pretty good job, but there will be outbreaks of criminal activity due to this. Like, how do you fault someone for stealing a loaf of bread when they're just trying to feed their kids, right? Jean Valjean from Les Mis, that age-old story. But I want to, one of the things I'm most excited about or happy about, because one of my, I shouldn't say it's a pet cause, it's like one of the most important things to me. If I were ever able to give a lot of money to a cause, it's the human trafficking and sex trafficking. That's coming to a halt, like screeching halt. That's like the best possible news, is there are people that have been abducted that will, people that like have been targeted to be abducted. It's like now.
Yeah, I think that topic right there, human trafficking in children, is something that Trump is also working on.
Well, it's hand in hand with the drug trade. It's hand in hand with the drug trade. So they go hand in hand. And so that's incredibly good news.
He's lobbed off the head of the snake that's involved in all of it.
Well, he's surrounding himself with the right people and making the right decisions, and he's still being attacked for. I mean, there's always reasons to attack anybody about anything. We all make mistakes. We all say stupid things. Thank God I'm not held accountable for every stupid thing I've ever said. But he seems to be holding up under the assault. I want to say one more thing, and we got a couple minutes. I do want to still keep these down to like 24, 25 minutes per episode. One thing I want to close with, and maybe we'll open with this tomorrow. I just read an article about some guy, and I don't know, I won't name names or places, but in the United States, a guy stabbed a family of 3 Chinese, like it was like a woman shopping with her 2 kids, and some guy went up and stabbed them. And when he was arrested, he says, because he thought they were spreading the coronavirus. So
that was here in the United States?
Yeah. So there are lunatics out there that will that will misinterpret information, or that they're paranoid delusionals. And so, there's a lot of people say, don't call it the China virus, because that will stir up racism. But that's just idiots. Anybody who thinks calling it a China virus or Chinese virus is racist, or that thinks that the Chinese people are responsible for this, are idiots. It's a government structure. It's an ideology that is responsible for this, and the country happens to be called China. I want to, and I'll list their names tomorrow, but I just read an article about the actual frontline heroes of this are the Chinese, the doctors and scientists in Wuhan who discovered this, who diagnosed it, who are spreading the word, and that were disappeared. Basically, they vanished. Exactly. Well, the one doctor, Wu Lin, I'll get the pronunciation and the spelling, but the first guy who on his social media was spreading it to all his former classmates from medical school, was saying, this thing is bad. We need to know about it, or people need to know about it. Then he was arrested after the word got out to the government. He was arrested and forced to sign an apology, or like he was shamed by the government. And then he died of the virus. He contracted it and died. And then the others, there was a scientist or doctor who worked with him, who was the one who forwarded it to him. And I'll get her name as well, but she is the one that forwarded him the information. She's disappeared. They can't find her, or last record, nobody knows where she is. So the Wuhan virus, the coronavirus, even if it's called the Chinese virus, it's not, do not direct anything against the Chinese. It's like, it's the government. And I want to make that clear always on this podcast, because there are idiots out there that will use any excuse to attack people that look different than them. And that's like, we are all human beings. We should focus on what we have in common. What we have in common is far more, is like exponentially greater than the differences. Like, would you rather have different color hair or only one arm? Right? There are certain levels of attributes that make you human. The color of your hair does not make you human, but having two arms makes you human. And so people
Right.
focus on hair color or skin color or height or weight or like all these exponentially less significant factors that people focus on to fight over, whereas the things that we have in common exponentially exceed in their significance the things that we are that make us different. So
Yeah.
I'll continue to articulate that and get that point across, because that's what it's about, bringing people hope. All right, Mom.
I'm chuckling because never mind. I'm not going to say it now. I'll say it tomorrow.
Well, you better, now that you've whetted everyone's appetite. What was Miracle Mom laughing about?
That's the tease.
As soon as
the tease for tomorrow.
Exactly. As soon as I hang up, you better write it down, because I'm going to hold you to it.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I love you.
Love you, Mom.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.